now.
Okay. Awesome.
And we are live. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Andy Green with Green Group Real Estate, and I am joined today again by the one, the only Annie Ransom.
Good morning, or I guess afternoon, everybody. Good to be back and with you all again this week.
It's hard to keep track of hours and days at this point, isn't it?
Oh, good grief. It's Monday and it feels like it should be, I don't know. I honestly don't know what day it should feel like.
I was going to say, is it Monday? I didn't even know it was Monday. So thank you for cluing me in. I greatly appreciate it. So today, and like past weeks, what we've been doing is we've been going online, going live, and helping you guys to understand what's going on in the local real estate and mortgage markets. And I know that a topic that is really, really important at this point, and a lot of people are talking about, is forbearance. So Annie is going to be like a lot more expert on mortgage and the forbearance process, the ins and outs, and things that you're going to need to know, questions to ask, and things to just have on the top of your mind in order to be educated and make good decisions today and moving forward. Because I think we talk last week about unemployment, Annie?
We did, yes, a bit. Yeah.
Yep. The unemployment numbers are skyrocketing every day and week as they release new data. And to be quite honest with you, I haven't looked at it over the past couple of days. I've kind of had my head buried in the sand. It's been a hectic couple of days. So, But what we do know is that they're skyrocketing, and a lot of homeowners are in a pretty tough spot right now. The government is adjusting. The banks are adjusting, maybe enough, maybe not enough. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So let me put the slides up on the screen. And this week they're actually going to work.
Yay!
So I know I worked out a lot of the kinks over the past week, figuring out technology and all that good stuff. And so they should be working better. And boom, there you go.
Look at how beautiful that is.
I know, right?
I
no
love
mirrors. It. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about, are you a homeowner seeking forbearance on your mortgage, and the ins and outs of that whole process. Before we get started, what is mortgage forbearance, Annie?
Yeah, so it just means that you are forgiven making that mortgage payment on its current trajectory of when that mortgage will be paid off. It doesn't mean that payment just goes away. It means that you're deferring the payment until later. And depending on any one person's situation, it could mean something different. Very similar to if you were deferring or forbearing your student loans. Lots of us know what that means, right? You graduate.
Yep.
You have 6 months before you have to start making those payments, which allows you to get a job and have the funds necessary in order to make that payment. So pretty similar, little couple differences, but that's a good analogy to understand what forbearance means.
Got it. We're going to dive into those differences and some of the questions. So the first slide, does forbearance mean forgiveness? What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I wish. That's what I can tell you. I sure wish that it meant forgiveness.
Right.
No, it's not forgiven. And I know that we'll talk about this with a couple of slides, or in the next couple of slides, but that just means that you don't have to make the payment now, but that payment's going to have to happen somewhere.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So somewhere is really broad.
Yes, it is.
I know that there are going to be a lot of scenarios based on the specific loan program and who's servicing it and all of that good stuff. Can you just give me just a couple of examples, maybe?
Yeah, of what could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the best case scenario is that let's say that I qualify, and we're going to talk about that in a minute here too. Okay. But let's say that I qualify for my loan payment to be in a forbearance period. It means I don't have to make that payment this month. And a lender might tack that payment on. So if I'm in a 30-year loan and my loan is going to mature on May 31st, it means that maybe that payment or my loan will now be completely paid off on June 30th. Okay. So the end of June or that June payment. So you're pushing back the full mortgage by an entire month. So rather than it being the 30th year, it will be on the 31st year because you skipped, or the 360th month, it'll be the 361st month because you're pushing this month's payment back.
So basically you're just tacking it on the back end of the loan, right?
Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it.
Right.
So do you need to know who your servicer is?
You do. That's very important. So
Okay.
don't contact the person that you got your loan from.
Right.
So any of my customers out there, although I'm happy to help you and happy to direct you in the right place, because I issued the loan, I'm not the one that you research whether or not you qualify for your forbearance.
Okay.
You have to contact your loan servicer, and that's who you make your monthly payments to. Okay. So you should all be getting bills, or you're set up on online billing. So you can contact who that bank is, who your money actually goes to. And if you aren't quite sure, then you can go to the mortgage electronic registration system. There's some information you'll plug in, and they'll tell you exactly who your mortgage servicer is.
Okay. Honestly, I'd never heard of that before today. So
yes.
Good little tip there. And it's honestly, it's amazing. A lot of times, we're getting people on the very early end of the home sale process, and I ask them what's their, how much they owe. So what's their payoff? And most people don't know. And it's probably just set up electronically, and it just, it gets paid, and they have no clue. It's kind of set it and forget it, which is a good thing because it's for savings. And at the same time, like, have your records put together and know who your servicer is. And it's more important today than it's really ever been before, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think the challenge too is that every bank, doesn't matter who the bank is, every bank reserves the right to sell your servicing to another entity out there. So the tricky thing is that there's folks out there that maybe are in between servicers at the moment, and that registration system is going to be really important to utilize. So again, if you just do a Google search, mortgage electronic registration system, every single mortgage loan has an ID that never changes for the life of that loan. It's kind of like a VIN number. And so you can find out what that number is. It will be in all of your loan documentation that you signed, so that you know exactly where that loan is at any given point in time.
I'm just curious, how do you have a percentage of how many of those loans are sold after they get their mortgage?
I would need to probably fact check it, but I'm guessing it's probably in the 80th percentile.
So the vast majority then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
What's crazy too is that mortgage forbearances, it's not a term that it's always been around. But very rarely would somebody qualify for a mortgage forbearance. Mm-hmm. However, these requests just within a 2-week period of time are up almost 1,900%. 1,900%. So typically 1,900%.
That's a lot. I would imagine that banks are feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now on time frames and getting through to the banks and getting answers, probably a little bit frustrating. Is that fair to say?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And the concern that a lot of banks have with these forbearances and how they go about honoring them is tricky too, because they don't want to run into a situation where they honor a forbearance period and then somebody turns right around and refinances that property, because interest rates are starting to go lower, which is great. Today, I started noticing it on Friday, but all of those mortgage-backed securities that the Fed's been buying up, like we've talked about the last couple of weeks, we're finally starting to see a little bit of reprieve. Not a ton just yet, but if you have a good plan in place, or you're looking to have a good plan in place, now's the time to do it. Because you should be seeing those target rates coming pretty soon.
Okay. So with that being said, then would it be a good idea to hold off on the forbearance process if you're going through a refinance right now?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it would be good I suppose, to know your options. So you should be talking with your current loan servicer. and your mortgage professional on what's happening with that refinance. But typically there's some pretty heavy things that go into qualifying for forbearance and therefore qualifying for refinance. So I don't know that the two of those will necessarily go hand in hand. Usually folks are utilizing a forbearance because they're having a financial hardship that forbearance is going to allow them to get through that hardship until they have the necessary funds in order to manage their financing like they normally would.
Right. A hardship, something like the government shutting down all economic industry, like something like that. Would that qualify?
I'd probably do it.
Okay. So I would assume then, and I don't know, and maybe you know or you don't, but I would assume that the qualification process is a lot more lax today than it's ever been before. And I haven't seen this in the CARES Act, but have you seen anything?
In terms of forbearance?
Yeah. Is it easy?
Sure.
I'm sure it's easier now, but do you have any idea how much easier it is or like what the process looks like?
Yeah, well, and I know we probably have a slide that we're going to be talking about it on, but yeah, I mean, people who have been impacted by COVID-19 specifically, if you've lost your job, if you've been sick, if you've been caring for somebody who has been sick,
Okay.
that's a lot easier these days because everybody understands what that means, rather than having to go through some hoops and whatnot to prove that you're truly in a financial hardship. Those things are still there.
Right.
You still do have to qualify. Not everybody gets their mortgage. Not everybody gets honored a mortgage forbearance.
Gotcha. And that actually leads us into the next question is what questions should you be prepared to answer? So more than likely, these are the questions that the banks are going to be asking you, right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So in addition to that, I want people to understand too, that first and foremost, you need to understand what agency backs that mortgage. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, if you're in an FHA, a VA, or a USDA loan, all of those are under this forbearance program. If you're outside of that, you still need to contact your loan servicer to find out. But these entities automatically place you right into the forbearance category that the government's been talking about. So this sort of stimulus, if you will.
Okay.
So if you get through that piece of it, then you move on to the next phase on determining whether or not you qualify as the consumer. So first, the bank's going to want to know, why can't you make your payments? Right. So if it's just due to financial negligence, if you went out and bought a boat and, a camper and you name it, and you and or your spouse, whoever is responsible for making those payments on that loan, if everybody has jobs and income still coming in, that may not necessarily qualify you for this. What they're really looking for is people who are facing some sort of financial hardship, whether it's temporary or permanently.
Right. I think that there's also just a lot of gray area because it's not just that people are losing their jobs or furloughed or, what have you. Jobs are their salaries are being decreased as well. I know people that have had to take a pay cut of 20, 40%.
Right.
And that affects your ability to pay all of your bills, your utilities, your food, clothing for your kids, and the mortgage payment and your cars, everything. So
yeah. Or another example, a good friend of mine who is in the building industry, the accounts that they typically sell to, which is the bread and butter of their income, those accounts, those clients or customers of theirs have had to close their businesses. So that not only impacts that business, but it impacts that individual that relies on those businesses for their income. So being able to explain, I lost my pipeline of customers and I'm no longer going to get paid on those, that's a huge piece too. Or if you're a manufacturer who's still open, but you can no longer send goods and services because the amount of folks that you're selling your products or services to are no longer around or can't be operating, there's a significant impact to that income too. So it's not just necessarily W-2, salary, hourly employees. It is across the board.
Right. Well, I can use our business as a good example. Although we are still closing homes, we still have listings that are hitting the market over the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Where we're at compared to where we were last year is down. This is going to affect people's mindset and listing their homes if they don't have to. So we're eliminating a good portion of the home sellers out in the market. You haven't seen a huge adjustment yet. And I'm going to go through the numbers at the very end, what is actually happening in the Portland market today. I believe that we are going to see an adjustment. What it's going to look like, I don't know, but it will affect home sales for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And and the next slide where it talks about the questions that you need to be prepared for, it isn't just that banks are going to be asking you these questions, they're going to be asking for proof. So they're going to want to see pay stubs, bank statements where you can see the income that's coming in, the assets that are there, and so on. So that, because if you have a bunch of money in the bank, but you lost your job, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to qualify for a forbearance. They're going to want to see how long can you make these monthly payments to help yourself get through the situation. And if the money's not there, then you may be honored one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the questions? It looks like, why can't you make your payments? Is the problem you're facing temporary or permanent? What is the current state of your income, expenses, assets, including money in the bank? So they're going to look at basically your whole financial picture, right?
Exactly.
And are you a service member with permanent change of station orders, which I think that's going to be a smaller percentage of the 20 million people that are projected to be out of work. But it's nonetheless, like we need to take care of our service members for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other questions that you can think of that they might want to be prepared with?
Those are going to be the basic ones.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Got
Banks
it.
just want to know, if you don't have money coming in, what do you have to rely on? And a lot of this allows them to determine how long of a forbearance period someone might need.
Okay. So let's talk about timeframes real quick then, because I've seen a pretty wide range. What's kind of the standard? And I know that they're going to evaluate it at the end of X period of time, maybe, and they're going to have a possibility of extending it even further.
Sure. So the standard is that you can apply for a forbearance period up to 180 days.
Okay.
So that's the standard. And at the end of that 180 days, you're eligible to have an extension for another 180 days, depending on what the circumstances are.
Got it. So between 6 months to a year.
Right.
Okay. Good to know.
Great.
Good to know. Do you think that somebody should get their forbearance agreement in writing?
Absolutely. Any sort of financial negotiation, no matter what it is, we see that in our industry, right? You don't just have verbal agreements on purchasing property or what the terms of it are. You have to have it in writing. Same thing with your loan. There's no handshake agreements anymore of, hey, you pay me X amount at this rate, right? We do everything in writing. It should be no different than your forbearance period.
Yep. So no spit in your hand and a good handshake. And we're going to call it good.
That's right.
I've always kind of wanted to do that and never have.
Right.
Maybe one of these days we'll make an agreement.
Okay.
Good, Annie?
I'll bring my hand sanitizer.
Well, we'll wait next year. We'll wait till next year.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So get it in writing. And I know that I am not the most organized person in the world, and there are probably a lot of people just like me. It is important that if you're going through this process to document everything, and just, keep records and get it in writing. So
yeah.
Good tip there.
And I think on that point, which just kind of brings us into the next slide, is you want to make sure that you know exactly what the terms of that forbearance are. So you need to see them in writing, because some of these agreements include something called a balloon payment.
Okay.
So what that means is that at the end of, let's say that you're honored a 6-month forbearance.
Okay.
A balloon payment means at the end of that 6 months, that lender is calling due all of those 6 months worth of payments the day that you come out of forbearance period.
Okay.
And that might be pretty tricky, because if you're not bringing in money over that 6-month period of time, how can you be saving or coming up with the money in order to repay that forbearance period?
Yep.
So it's really important to know what you're agreeing to, so that you don't end up in a sticky situation once you finally come out of that forbearance period and you're getting back to work and whatnot. So definitely know what the scoop is.
And that is happening.
That is happening.
That is happening, friends. So you want to make sure that you know for a fact what the terms are. And if you know, because you're exactly right, like, who's saving a chunk of money when they're not working and going to have the ability to pay for 6 months? Let's just say it's $2,500, a $2,500,
$15,000.
15. Oh yeah, I've just got $15,000 in my back pocket to give to my bank at the end of 6 months, as we come out of COVID-19. Like this, it's just so unrealistic that's going to happen. Could it? Yep. Probably small, very small percentage. And that is happening. So be very, very careful and ask questions about a balloon payment or the terms. Are they putting it on the back end of the loan? Maybe negotiating out over the length of the loan. I don't know, but you should know. When you're having these conversations, remember this. And that balloon payment, if it gets stuck in there somewhere and you don't know about it, that's going to cause a lot of problems 6 months down the road, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. And on that note, I wish that we would have had a poll before we started this for people to say whether they think their forbearance agreement is, if they can negotiate. I'd just love to see what people have to say. But the answer is yes. So if there's something, once you see that in writing, that makes you feel a little uncomfortable, don't be afraid to hold your ground and negotiate. Because look, these banks, they're not in the business of taking back your mortgage, right? A lot of banks learned their lesson in the 2006 and beyond years.
Yep.
And so they really want to work with people in order to ensure that everybody can be successful. They know that everybody is in a tough time. They're in a tough space right now because this affects everybody. So you can absolutely negotiate the terms of that forbearance. Chances are that it's probably not going to be you saying, hey, just get rid of this one mortgage payment and continue on, and there's no negative impact. Right. Probably won't be along those lines, but it may very well be the terms in which you have to repay what you missed during that period of time. So don't be afraid to ask, do your research. There's tons of information on the internet right now. This is where real estate attorneys come into play. Not that you need to necessarily secure yourself an attorney, but consult with the professionals so that you know exactly what your rights are and exactly what's in the realm of possibility so that you're protected.
Right. Well, I think that actually I know that there's a lot more equity in homes today than there was back in 2006, 7, 8, 10. And we talked about that in a previous live stream. There's a lot more equity, and the banks, like, they understand what we're going through right now. And so I think that we're just in a stronger position. We've got a stronger foundation underneath us to weather this storm, and this will come to pass, right?
Right.
Will come to pass. We just have to figure out how to get through this season, this time, and get through it to the other side.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. So negotiate. And you know what? I was actually thinking about this when you first started talking about negotiating. I think that in general, people have a fear of negotiating. They just don't enjoy it. It's not comfortable. That's why going into a used car sales lot and having to negotiate with 3 different parties, and like, that's why CarMax is doing so well, right?
Mhm.
So you just have to like buckle up and have smart questions and know that you have options. You have options
Right.
here. So if they say that this is the way it's going to work and they talk about the balloon payment, be like, hey, whoa, Nelly, let's talk about maybe putting it on the back end, right?
Right.
I think that just
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense. So
Yep. Absolutely.
okay, so what happens if you get to the end of, let's say, 12 months? So you get to the end of 6 months, they extend your forbearance to the end of 12 months, and you still either don't have a job or you're so far behind that you don't know how you're going to be able to catch up. What are your options then?
Well, I think always to contact the loan servicer, because this thing is going to continue to evolve in order to help people.
Yep.
But certainly there's going to be things like contacting your real estate professional and evaluating what your options are for that property, and asking the tough questions. Is it time to hunker down and stay in this property, or do we need to make some tough decisions in order to move forward to get ourselves in a good financial position until we personally rebound? You can contact the loan servicer about loan modifications. That was something that was really popular in the 2006 plus years.
I remember.
Yep. And so again, like we talked about, folks have really good equity in their properties right now. And so, if you have to leverage that equity, that's what it's meant for. So I just think tapping into additional resources that you have available is where we'll be at unless the government continues to extend these forbearance periods.
Right. One of our core values for our company is do whatever it takes. And that's where we're at right now. Just having the ability to get through this time, you're going to have to make those hard decisions and do whatever it takes to get through the next 3, 6, 12 months.
Right.
Just do whatever it takes, make the hard decisions. Don't bury your head in the sand and pretend like we're not where we're at. If you evaluate it and look at the whole picture and then just come up with solutions to the problem, even if they're not great solutions,
right,
keep taking positive steps forward, and you'll be glad that you did, I believe.
Right. I'm with you.
Yep.
So what's happening in the real estate world?
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So you'd think going through this period in time that like everything's at a standstill, which honestly, I would think that where we're at and what's going on with the health of the United States and the economy and everything shutting down, that our numbers would be dramatically changed, and probably not dramatically changed up, but dramatically changed down. And honestly, that is just not what we're seeing yet. I mentioned a little bit earlier that we could see a change and a reduction in listings hitting the market. But last week, so over the past 7 days, and that's not as of today, it's as of a few days ago, there were 721 new listings on the market. 721 new listings on the market. In the previous week, there were 661. So homes are still coming on the market, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like at an increase.
It is. It's an increase. Yeah. I can't remember what it is, like 6% increase, something like that. Yeah. Math in my head is not my strong suit. How about you?
Not in my head, no. But I have a very fancy calculator that tells me that's just over 9%.
9%. Okay, so new listings, a 9% increase in new listings. 197 homes came back on the market. So something happened one way or the other. You're going through the inspection period. Somebody lost financing. We are seeing that. I haven't seen a huge number. Actually, I haven't had any of those in my business, but a lot of my friends have been talking about that happening. So it's reality. So 197 back on the market and 187 the week before. So it's pretty even. And those numbers are fairly typical for a real estate market. If you were to go back in time 12 months and look at the same numbers, it's probably going to be somewhat similar. So not a dramatic increase that some people might expect, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
And then we get to pending sales. So how many homes a buyer and a seller agreed on price, terms, home off the market. So 454 pending sales in the past 7 days in the Metro Portland market, and that's compared to 484 the previous week. So again, a slight variation, not much of a change there, and those are pretty typical numbers that we would see in the Portland market. And then the final number is closed sales. So how many transactions closed in the Metro Portland market? And it's 599 over the past 7 days and 617 the week before. So all of these numbers, they're pretty
steady,
doing the same thing week after week. And you look at, like, I was looking about a week ago at China's numbers, and their real estate market completely came to a standstill. Literally a standstill. And then it took about 2, 4, 6 weeks after they came out of it, where you started to see those numbers increasing. And based on where we're at and the numbers that we're seeing in our local market, like, these are still pretty healthy numbers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exciting. That's promising, I think, for sure.
I think so too. We'll take any bit of good news that we can get right now.
That's right.
Any little bit of good news, we'll take it.
I love it. Love it.
Okay, sweet. Annie, what final thoughts might you have today?
Oh my gosh. Let's see. What words of wisdom do I have this week? Well, I have heard mixed news on when we will see this order coming up, but I've read something about mid to late May. So, I think a lot of people are probably in the groove by now of what this thing looks like, and school is out for the year. And so I just think, if you don't have any other choice, if you don't have the ability to go to work, enjoy this time with your kids and with your family, and do things that you don't ever normally get a chance, and just really embrace what's happening, because it will change. We will come out of it, and you'll never get this time back to do those things. So I think that there's a silver lining to be grateful for.
I would agree. As hard as this time is, it is temporary, and I've seen a lot of good things come out of it. Hard, yet there, like you said, silver lining. There's some good things as well. So with the change in the weather, it has been beautiful out there over the past 2, 3, 4 days in Portland. Anytime we don't get rain, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
Great.
So continue to stay safe, keep your social distancing. I think that people are doing a good job. And at the same time, I think it's just going to be very enticing to let up a little bit during this time. And we're not through this yet, right?
Yeah, we are not.
We're not through it. So,
nope.
So stay.
I'd like to say that we're halfway through it, but I don't know if we're quite there yet either.
Yeah. Every week we get a little bit more information, new news, and we just have to adjust as needed. So,
right. Yeah.
So Annie, thank you so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate it. It's always fun. I think that our technology is getting better, and we're kind of getting the groove of this a little bit. So hopefully it was information and news that you guys can use. And like, our ultimate goal is to just be a resource for you. There's, I think, a lot of information that you can focus on the negative in today's market or today's environment that we're in, and like, so many good things that we can focus on, and we're blessed in so many ways. I truly feel that, and I try to keep a longer term perspective and know that we're going to get through this, and we just have to do whatever it takes right now. So So you guys, until next week, we will be back on Monday at 12:30 again. And if you want to connect with us, you can find us on all social sites, pretty much all of them. You might be watching this on the Green Group Real Estate Facebook page. We're also on Instagram. If you just look up Green Group Real Estate, you'll find us. We're on YouTube as well, Green Group Real Estate. And where might everybody be able to find you if they have questions about mortgage forbearance or just any mortgage related information?
Absolutely. Same. Facebook, Annie Ransom, Instagram, Annie Ransom. You've placed my information on the slides. but yeah, here every week. So feel free to drop me a DM or shoot me an email or give me a call. And we'd love to hear from you guys too. So if there's any specific topics that you'd love for us to focus on or any lingering questions, we try and stay in the heart of what's going on in the news and the media because there's a lot of buzz out there, but always open to suggestions as well.
Yeah. Well, we also have an awesome chat feature as a part of this platform. And I'd love to have people just enter their questions in as we're going live. If you're watching this live, or if you're not, maybe next week, think of questions that you have. Come on at 12:30. We'll be live. Ask your questions then. It could be about any of our past videos, just any lingering questions that you're just not sure about. Maybe we don't have the information, but I can promise you that both of us have direct lines to some really, really smart people that if we don't have the information, we will get it for you. Fair enough?
Right. Love it.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. And I'll talk to you before next week, but
yeah,
we'll be back next week, 12:30. Same
Thanks,
time,
guys.
same place. Okay.